Attention, all you fishes in the sea. Welcome to the Fisch Bowl with Sam Fish.
What's up, all my fishes in the sea? Thanks for tuning into the Fisch Bowl and for being a subscriber. I'm your host, Sam Fish, and today's guest is a recurring guest, Patrick Kilpatrick. On today's episode, we talk about his work on Minority Report, Last Man Standing, Eraser, and a bunch of other cool stuff. You don't want to miss this episode. Check it out. All right, Patrick Kilpatrick on the Fisch Bowl once again.
Good morning. Good afternoon.
Great to have you on the show again. This time we can actually see, well, I can see you. My apologies about my camera issue.
There you go. You're there.
In and out.
Yeah. See, that was a perfect example. I used the word intermittent. You used the word in and out. That's in and out is much preferable to intermittent.
Okay. Thank you.
In the context of screenwriting.
Right.
You know.
Definitely. Let's talk about your new film you have coming out, Dying for a Living.
Well, Dying for a Living has been an incredibly transformational journey for me. Let's start about just in the production. I've got a really great team. First of all, writing, directing, producing, and acting in a movie of this scale may be a bridge too far. But we managed to get through the first week, and the second week we started to hit our stride. I would be remiss to say that I think, in an effort to make it all turn out the way it was, look, you do what you have to do, but the bottom line is, I think it was a very transformational experience for me in learning how to lead people, that you can never lose your cool about it. It just isn't the way to lead people. So we began to hit our stride in the second week. I feel like I personally got a great deal out of that process because you have decision making coming at you so fast from so many different quarters that eventually I liken it to like being in combat. You really have to steady yourself and only focus about what is 2 feet in front of your face. And as they say, slay the dragon right in front of your face and then move on to the next thing. So it looks great. The footage looks great. We have got about 45%, 50% of the film done. Here's the other great life lesson I got from that, which was what appears to be a negative, which I thought I knew this lesson, but it was very much reinforced for me on Dying for a Living. What appears to be a negative actually is positive on the road to the final product, the final film. For example, like I wanted my son to play this particular part. He's incredibly handsome and 6'5" and a natural good actor. I know from having directed him in school plays and stuff as he was growing up. He's now 25. And I asked him to do it, and he didn't want to do it because acting's not his thing. He's a really talented architect. And so he said no. Well, so I ended up hiring an actor who looked similar, who was immensely accomplished and highly skilled and educated in acting. And on the day of the shoot, he got COVID. And so I had to call my son and say, please, will you help your old man out? And he did it. So it was really like destiny was taking care of me and wanting my final realization to happen. But you have to really accept that. We broke because we ran out of money, but that allowed us to have the opportunity to rewrite the script, to add in depth, to make it much more deeper, connect all the dots, and to create some additional cast which really elevated the project. So on the one hand, it sounds, oh, you ran out of money, the movie stopped, but it's all for the good of the final project. So now what we're doing right now is we're working really hard to get somebody to come in and play my brother for 3 days, who's a huge name, who would elevate the distribution rights of the film astronomically, and at the same time find that sweet spot where they don't want $2-3 million. They want a figure that we can pay and get them to supplement the cast. We added Nina Bergman, who's brilliant and is a great asset. I'm very excited about working with her again. I did Assassin X with her successfully, and she's just a terrific talent. Great physical action acting skill actor, great actress, real great beauty. Happy to have her come in and play my ex-wife in the film. We just made the project richer. Now, that leads to the process of raising money. Raising money, as I just was telling you off camera before we started recording, it's a journey of evolution, strategic materials that support it. It has a lot to do with numbers. It has a lot to do with the distribution community, which they're hardcore, conservative. I don't want to say bottom feeders, but they are very, very hardcore, cold cash number guys and ladies. And so you're working in that world. They don't particularly care about artistic considerations. It's all down to numbers. They care about artistic things, but only as it supports the numbers. So that's a journey in itself. Just like acting, you've got to make sure that you're coming from an authentic place, even when it becomes mind-numbing. And so I jump in the cold pool all the time and wash it off and then go right back onto the track. That's what's going on with that. It's a learning process, and I'm enriched by the learning process. And I really mean that. It can be debilitating, sort of like law school. You know, they really put you through the paces, but I know in the end that it will be good for the project. We got another project that we have elevated the script, and we hope to shoot it in Colorado, called First American, which is a terrific project. That's a sort of a side job that came in. The director that I just did a movie called Nessie with in Scotland, which will be out at Christmas. Robbie Moffat wrote the original script, and we elevated it here at Uncommon Dialogue Films, and we've got that out to some big name talent. So hopefully that will come together. It's a much bigger budget than Dying for Living. Not as expensive as some of our other projects, but still significant elevation of the money involved. Did a lot of meetings with Arizona tax incentive people and film commission people. Just a lot of seeking of funding. You know, the heartwarming thing about everybody in this town, whether it's Spielberg or me or anybody, they're all looking for funding, whether it's from a studio, streaming service, or a high net worth individual or a hedge fund or whatever. It's kind of heartwarming. We're all doing the same thing. And I think that's part of the life of a filmmaker. The money has to come from somewhere. So there you go.
Very cool. Very cool. Now the big baddie and Dying for Living is Costas Mandylor, right?
Yeah, he's supplemented by Tatiana Neva, who plays my ex-wife, who is central to all of that. And Nina coming in to play my other ex-wife. He is the central on the screen antagonist, although this person who's coming in to play my brother would be the uber bad. So that's what's going on with that. It's an intricate ensemble piece. There's a lot of parts to the puzzle, and Costas is fantastic. He does this incredible job. Costas is the kind of guy like I am that, you just tell them what you need or want and they bring it, which is a great pleasure to work with. Aside from the fact he's a superb man, a real man's man, an authentic personality, and a dear friend, and I'm really blessed to work with him. He's a super scout, too. He's out there always looking for assets, funding assets, distribution assets, and things like that. So very much part of the team here.
That's awesome. I actually got to meet him a couple years ago at Pittsburgh's local Comic-Con.
Right.
And he was a super nice guy. I'm trying to get him on my show, and I'm friends with him on Facebook, but I'm not sure how often he checks his Facebook messages. But he's definitely someone I would love to get on the show, and I'm also a big fan of his brother as well.
Yeah, Lewis, we almost were going to have him in the movie. Lewis has had some success with Debt Collector, and a number of other things. So it really came down to dollars. And in the end, we really decided that we had our Mandalore brother already. But never say never. Lewis may enter Dying for the Living at some juncture. There's already a circus of really quality. Olivia Gruner is an action name. Egan Machado, the 8-time world jiu-jitsu champion, is just a super guy and is doing an extraordinary job in the movie. We added Torian Prince, who's an NBA superstar, for a couple of reasons. He's got a really great look. He's got a really aggressive style of play. And he's our sort of first person we're cultivating out of the NBA. Who else? Tatiana Neva does a great job athletically and acting-wise. Of course, she's very beautiful as well. So I'll mention it to Costas. Have him come on your show.
Oh, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
He's an easygoing guy. He lives in Portugal. And he just had a baby.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah. So I guess maybe she's 4 or 5 months now. Athena. So yeah, he'll be a great dad and have a lot of fun doing that too. His lovely wife, Victoria.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I had a grandson.
Yes, I heard. Yeah. Congrats.
And Alexander Jude Kilpatrick. He's awesome. Interesting. I know from my wife's granddaughters, there's a lot of FaceTiming. So it's interesting to watch this process of how these very tiny new beings relate with the two-dimensional Patrick or Heidi. And then when you meet them in real life, you're three-dimensional. And in the case of Heidi, it's sometimes her kids were living in another state. So the grandchildren. So they had a lot of that two-dimensional FaceTime thing. And so it kind of comes as kind of a slightly disorientating shock when you're suddenly a three-dimensional being in front of them.
I'm sure. That's awesome.
Yeah, Alexander Jude's about 2 months old now.
Fantastic. I wanted to let you know one of my all-time favorite films that you're in is Last Man Standing. And it's also one of my favorite Bruce Willis / Walter Hill films. And I recently reached out to Walter Hill's publicist, and I'm trying to get in the process of having him come on the show. And, probably one of my biggest inspirations for just everything I like, writing, movie style. I was wondering, I guess, with the recent news with Bruce Willis retiring, could you maybe share an experience or some experiences what it was like to work with both Walter and Bruce Willis on that film.
Yeah, I love Walter. I haven't seen him for a while. We share shooting things. Let's say overall, Last Man Standing was a really fun job to do. I auditioned for the job and got it. And then as I was going out the door, I said to him, can I read for this other part? Because it was bigger, not knowing that that was the Chris Walken thing, that they had offered Chris Walken. So Walter said, well, I like a man who likes to play poker, sort of upping the ante. Of course, they didn't have me audition back because I found out later that they had already offered that part to Christopher Walken. I remember I played an Irish American there. I remember it was a lesson that I kind of generally carried with me. I had prepared the dialect and they wanted me to back down on the dialect just a little bit so that it was a little less pronounced, which is easy to do. That was that. I also remember working with Christopher Walken, who I've had some connections with in the past that weren't necessarily acting, but just meeting at events and restaurants and things and talking and sending him material. But it was really interesting to watch how he works, and he sort of improvs many different versions of a line. And so the editor, at least then, I don't know what he's doing now as a work process, but then he would literally come up with about, 20 different versions of a line. So the editors must have and all of which were spot on and really cool. I'll give you an example. Like if his line was, hey, how are you, Patrick Kilpatrick? He would say, hey, it's Babaloo, Makalabaloo, Patrick Kilpatrick, and, just playing with it. And then he'd do this 20 different times, and each one of them was different. And so the editor would have a selection of a lot of different things. That was interesting. I talk about Last Man Standing a lot in my book, volume 2 of which, in my memoir, volume 2 of which I'm polishing right now. It was written before COVID with the first book, The Dying for Living, volume 1. But I split it into 2 volumes, and this one is all show business. And I talk about Last Man Standing a lot in the book. I remember Karina Lombard, who was very beautiful in it. And I always thought that I hoped for romantic connection between Bruce Willis' character, and Karina Lombard. I thought that was something that was somewhat of a missed opportunity there. And the other thing is, do you remember when Bruce Willis has his face near a cut up roast beef or ham?
Yeah.
Very funny. His face is all beat to hell and looks like this roast beef. And I longed for more of that sort of ironic humor throughout the movie. I feel like Last Man Standing is probably, of course now we have John Wick and stuff like that, but really some of the best gun cinematography I've ever seen. And that was great stunt coordinator Alan Graff. Of course, that brings up my death. When I got blown out that window, that door in the bar room, I was being doubled by Dave Rowden then. And so I took it up to the door, and then they put a ratchet. Do you know what a ratchet is?
I'm not exactly familiar with it. Is it some type of hydraulic?
Yeah, it's a hydraulic harness.
Okay.
A harness that's put underneath your wardrobe, and then you're hooked up to this pneumatic thing that just literally blasts you backward and or whatever direction they want to send you. And they forgot to calculate the height of difference between the ground and the deck that he was being launched backward off of. So they had dug a pit in the middle of the street to soften the earth, but he flew right over that and almost hit that truck on the opposite side of the street. And Alan Graff's a very gruff former Oakland Raiders football player and great stunt coordinator. He also did Any Given Sunday, and he's done some acting too. But anyway, I said, God, what the hell happened to there? Because I thought Dave Rowden had been killed because he tumbled end over end and landed on the back of his neck. And I thought, oh my God, this is really a major screw up. And Alan was like, no, there was no mistake there. So, but I said, well, if there was no mistake there, how come he went right over the pit and almost hit the truck on the opposite end of the street? Alan also did Replacement Killers that I did with Antoine Fuqua. And I had to sort of terrorize Chow Yun-fat. And then he does something and we have to go back. And I was carrying this machine gun, an MP4. And as I go backwards, I'm firing. And I lost my balance as I was going backwards. And the set was a paint shop inside a garage, where inside a car wash where they did body work and painting. That was the conceit. Anyway, I lost my footing and went ass over end and smashed into the set and literally destroyed the whole set. And, the light bulbs that they use on the heat of the paint to bake it into the cars, all of that was blown away because me falling. Alan was beside himself going, that was such a mistake. But Antoine Fuqua stepped out and said, that's the take. That's perfect. So sometimes your mistakes become indelibly the appropriate thing. So what else do I remember? I remember, do you know Last Man Standing? Original name was called Gun Down.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, which I thought was a great title. And then one day I'm sitting there with Walter Sarkisian and is his name? Arthur Sarkisian and Walter Hill. I'm sitting there. I was a fairly young actor at the time. And Bruce Willis goes, hey, the name of the town where this takes place is Jericho. How about if we call it Welcome to Jericho? Well, you could tell that Arthur Sarkisian, the producer, and Walter Hill, the director, and I really thought that was not a great title as opposed to Gun Down. But nobody was going to have the balls to say that to Bruce Willis. Least of all me. Because maybe Walter, but you could tell even Walter Hill didn't want to tell him this. And Arthur Sarkisian didn't. So the movie was dutifully changed on the scripts to Welcome to Jericho. And everybody thought it was awful. We didn't like it. But Bill Paxton came in one day to watch dailies. We'd watch dailies at lunchtime. And he stands up or is at the lunch table and he goes to Walter. He goes, Walter, what the hell is with this Welcome to Jericho title? And then he makes a motion like, and that was the end of the title. It was gone. And I've always been so grateful to Bill Paxton for having, he didn't care. He said whatever came to his mind, and it worked out to get rid of that title. I loved working with Bruce. I loved working with Bruce because Bruce is an actor, and his origins were the stage in New York, which is where my origins are. And I had been through a number of movies with athletes, not that there's anything wrong with them, but athletes who had become actors, like Jean-Claude, and to some extent Steven Seagal, and Chuck Norris. And I had a similarity of origin story with Bruce Willis. And so I really loved working with him. And I got along with him really well. His wife had a shared makeup artist, Joanne Bier, who was a huge makeup artist, Madonna's makeup artist as well, and a friend of my then wife and I, and we had bought some land in Colorado together. And Bruce Willis had land in Sun Valley, Idaho, and I had bought some land in Telluride. So we had a lot to talk about. I remember the first day I met him, we were doing that scene outside the car, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I said, "How you doing?" And he goes, "Well, you know, just doing tough guy number 5. And, you know, he was pretty cool. I liked him a lot. Some other good people, Michael Imperioli was in that movie.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I really like his work. I recently watched Sopranos for the first time, and he's really riveting in that. Very energetic. I forget who else. The other thing about that job, which was great, you know, when I got killed, you remember they lined up people in the mortuary?
Right.
In the window.
Yeah.
So I would get $1,000 a day every time I came in to lie in that coffin. So, you know, I was picking up some money for just lying there with my hands folded. It was a great job. Great job. I really enjoyed it. I intend, my only criticism, and it's not really criticism, is I would have had some romantic involvement between Bruce Willis and Karina Lombard.
I can see that.
I think, you know, you have to think about doing things that are, I know a lot of women, including my wife, love action movies, and that's a great one. It's certainly a beautifully filmed. Lloyd Ahern, the cinematographer on that show, was the guy who did Death Warrant with me. And, you know, he became huge as a cinematographer, huge. And the movie reflects that, his skill and talent. Really beautiful. Just really well shot. But I always, when I'm writing something and we're developing a movie here, we always want to encompass the romantic and the things that would appeal to the romanticism and contact between the sexes. So that would be my only scriptural addition that I would make if I was that, and more of the ham-fisted humor aspect of it, just a little bit more. I think the movie that would have carried the movie a little bit more to a greater audience level. But it's very well thought of by people, mostly because of the cinematography, I think.
I definitely agree with that. The whole way it's shot, the setup, the angles, it makes it a very memorable, you know, but yet like unique action film that kind of sets it apart from a lot of the other ones.
Yeah, Walter's great. He's never really spent a lot of time with women characters. And I think that hurts him, you know, to some extent. Because as the world has evolved and changed, and since 52% of the Earth's population is female, you know, I think you really have to consider making that. If we have a movie that we're developing and there's 2 male leads, or a male lead or 2 male leads, we make sure that behind that there are female leads. If there's 2 female leads or a female lead, make sure that you've got 2 or 3 or 4 male leads underneath it. So you're, I think, telling a more dynamic story that has the potentiality of grabbing a hold of both sexes. You take a movie like, I love Peter Weir. You take a movie like Master and Commander. I think the movie would have been much better if Russell Crowe's character had a fling, if you will, or a romance with the native woman it comes up to the boat. Now, there's a legitimate thematic thing that he looks at her and then his sense of duty pulls him away and he goes back. But I think what that does is it makes Master and Commander all about just men on a boat rather than, and I think great movies have that component of romanticism. I mean, there are notable exceptions to that. Saving Private Ryan doesn't have a lot of chicks in it.
Right.
But, and it's still an epic movie. But I think generally in the norm, in the broader scheme of things, I would write things like if I was doing Saving Private Ryan, maybe there would have been a woman in that town and some connection, even if it's not fully realized, perhaps between somebody like Tom Hanks and someone else that was there, that was French or something like that. So I don't mean to stretch it and change it into something else. It's still a movie about a group of guys that goes out to save another soldier. But I just think the movies that I gravitate to most have that component of romanticism, and just like they have redemption. Certainly Saving Private Ryan has an awful lot of redemption. But, you know, there's a place in the cinematic stratosphere for everything.
Definitely. Another movie of yours that me and my dad quote like literally all the time is Minority Report.
Yeah, great one. Really masterful. If you think how prophetic it was to all the touch screen stuff and everything else. Yeah, I mean, I loved just about everybody who's in that movie. Samantha Morton was fantastic. Peter Strohmeyer. I forget her name right now, but the older woman who was in the garden with the poisonous plants.
Yeah.
Fantastic scene. Just really good. It was great fun working with Colin Farrell. You know, we actually filmed stuff where I saved Tom Cruise's character. I know why he didn't use it, but Steven filmed a lot of stuff that doesn't make its way into the end movie. I remember him as a very frugal, big budget director. He thought nothing of just cutting something. He acted like it was all his own money. You know that police station that was made out of glass?
Yeah.
They gave that to me after the movie. And I was going to build a house with it. But I actually didn't have any place to store it. So I didn't take it. But so they just, big budget movies, they trash a lot of stuff like that. It was the kind of glass where if you break it, it shatters. So
wow.
I would have had to construct a house that was only out of the big panels. So, yeah, it was fun. Tom Cruise is great to work with. He really is. He loves doing his own stunts. He and I were flying around doing all of that stuff. We won Stunt of the Year for that stuff. And specifically, some of it wasn't even stunts. It was just like the tube where we go flying up.
Yeah.
And I'm screaming and he's on my back. And well, really all that was a rope. And he's attached to my back and they pull me up slowly through the thing. And I'm screaming as they're doing it. And then they add the flame from my rocket pack in post-production. So there's not much of a stunt. There was plenty of stuff where we were flying 125 feet above the Warner Brothers lot, but that particular piece wasn't, and it won Stunt of the Year award. And by the way, they gave it to a stuntman. I didn't get it. And Tom didn't get it, which is fine. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. Just a great movie. I mean, you do a Spielberg movie, you're on the top of the food chain.
Absolutely. That one is one of my top favorite Steven Spielberg films, and I'm also a huge Philip K. Dick fan, which it was based off his story.
Yeah, I'm a big fan too, although he torpedoed, even though he wasn't alive, a movie I got hired to direct and produce and write called Gleichungstung, which was Nazis won the war deal. I got hired to write and produce and direct this thing and act in. And we were about halfway through it, and we built this whole future world where the Nazis had won the war. And then Man on the High Castle came out. So that kind of screwed that momentarily, although I switched it to another period. And we haven't gotten back around to finishing that one. But I think it's more interesting now. This is another thing that you like, the dying for living things that appear to be negative initially turn out to be better for you creatively. You think that your project's destroyed by Man on the High Castle coming out. But in fact, with a little bit of creative elbow grease, you're into something that's much finer. So
that sounds really cool. I would love to see that when that comes, whenever that is able to be finished. And
I got these script writing jobs when COVID started, and we've all worked on them as a team here. I just haven't gotten back to that one, but it's a really interesting project. I am very dedicated to getting paid. So mostly because I'm supporting employees and things like that. So we don't do a lot of speculative work. So I should call the producer of that one and say, hey, let's get some more development funds so we can finish that one.
Definitely. I also wanted to let you know that I'm planning to take a trip to California sometime in the new year, and I wanted to, I guess, check with your schedule if you knew far enough in advance to possibly meet you in person.
Sure, I generally don't know that far in advance. Currently, meetings will come up and things like that, but just let me know. I'm sure we'll work it out.
Awesome.
About Costas, just send me a little email inviting him on the show, and I'll just forward it to him.
I will definitely do that. Thank you again for that. That's awesome.
No worries. The number of guys we can do that one.
I actually think the last time we spoke on the phone, I told you I just recently did an interview with Peter Dobson, and he was talking about Lewis's new World War II film that he was working on, and trying to get Lewis on my show. So to get Costas and Lewis, would be awesome, because I'm a huge fan of both their stuff. Really awesome action movies and everything.
We'll put the two emails together and I'll forward them to you.
Awesome. Thank you. I will definitely do that.
No worries.
Awesome. And there's I saw that Stallone had the new Expendables movie coming out.
Uh-huh.
And in all honesty, I'm kind of shocked that he hasn't approached you to have some sort of role in one of those in a possible Expendables sequel, because I always kind of considered you, among like the heavy hitting, action stars. I mean, your Schwarzenegger was always my number one, because my dad let me watch Total Recall when I was like 5 years old.
Uh-huh.
And, just covered my eyes on the three-titted lady. But it left like a huge impression on me. And I've been like hooked on action movies, and the whole star lineup from working with the greats.
Well, I really thank you very much for that. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me, but it doesn't surprise me when you consider how movies get cast. And I've certainly been through that with Dying for a Living. It's a madness, a madhouse. And you're not the first person who said I should have been in those movies, but I don't even know if Sylvester Stallone knows that I'm alive. So, he's one of the few guys I haven't gone up against as an antagonist, and I'm a big fan of him, largely because I know how skilled he is as a writer and a director and an actor, and I love to work with him. We'll see what happens. I think these things, the good Lord, the universe, whatever you want to call it, sends you where you're supposed to go.
I definitely agree with that because
speaking of great guys, Arnold is sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but Arnold is fantastic to work with, by the way. Really fun.
It's a bucket list item of mine to meet both Schwarzenegger and Stallone, and possibly interview them. I'm not asking that of you because I know that's probably a little hard to do.
It wouldn't be hard if I ran into them, like Tom Cruise, run into them at the supermarket or something, because then you have a good conversation with them. The problem calling them is that you have a lot of intermediaries that
Right.
their whole job is stopping them. I've kind of lost contact directly with Arnold ever since he became governor, which was many years ago now. So, or I've run into both of them on film sets, and always great and wonderful to see them. But, their numbers are changing or something like that, or so. But yeah, he's a lot of fun. Just a great practical joker too.
I've heard some stories.
Yeah, Chuck Russell was the director. He would do stuff like make a balloon penis and stick it on Chuck's back without Chuck knowing it. So he would be going around the set all day with the balloon penis on his back. Very just a big kid having a really good time. Terrific guy. Really great ability to be an icon. What else were we talking about there?
I was just going to say, I think, we were talking about, things guiding in the right places and everything. And I just wanted to add that I think that's true because it's allowed, you and me to connect and, I think, build a friendship. And I'm very grateful for that.
Well, me too. You're awesome. And I'll talk to you the days ahead. Just put those emails together and I'll forward them to Louis.
I definitely will.
Have you ever had a conversation with Ken Davidian?
Who?
Ken was the fat manager in Borat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
He's another great guy. Marty Cove, who's having a real moment with Cobra Khan, and he's a good guy too. We got a bunch of them. Michael Pare. Has he been on your show?
No, but I'm a big fan of his too.
He's a really good actor, underrated.
Yeah.
And a good guy. Just put a template together and I'll forward it together. I've been on the show and would you like to? Here's his contact number.
That would be terrific. Thank you so much. That is awesome.
Well, we got to have your podcast turn into the biggest podcast just short of Joe Rogan.
Exactly. Exactly. I totally agree. I really appreciate the help. And it's
I know, it's not an easy gig cultivating a podcast. I've kind of resisted it, mostly because we're so busy with the film writing and the producing and stuff and the fundraising. But it's not an easy thing. You gotta. It's one thing to be asked questions. It's another to ask questions all the time.
right. Well, I think this is probably a good place to stop.
Okay.
It's again just been a pleasure speaking with you this time. I know my camera kind of failed out, but I can see you, so it's been great talking with you somewhat face to face. And I just again I appreciate everything you're doing for me, all the help, and I'll keep in touch about when I'm planning a trip out there and looking very much forward to meeting you in person.
Well, you have to. I don't know. Are you a donut fan?
I am a big donut fan.
Well, Aaron McKinnon donuts. They're vegan and just delicious. I always say they're the most expensive donuts. I don't know if they are really. There's another one called Blue Bottle Donuts that's really well thought of. But they only have 3 Aaron McKenna shops, one here on Larchmont, one in New York, and one in Miami. And they're really great, awesome donuts. They're vanilla donuts or maple donuts or out of this world. I live in a really great neighborhood that's got a lot of great stuff and coming up all the time. So maybe we'll go have a donut when you come.
That would be awesome.
All right, man. You stay out of trouble, and I'll be talking to you shortly.
Sounds great. I definitely will.
Oh, I just do want to say shameless moments of self-promotion. Let's see. I God love them. I got Best Supporting Actor in Best of Borrowed Time 3, the New Jersey Film Festival, Film Awards. Best Supporting Actor, Borrowed Time, New Jersey Film Awards. I got Best Ensemble Cast for Catalyst, directed by Chris Walken. Borrowed Time 3 is directed by Alan Galapi. And Costas is in that one with me too, as is Lewis. And also Best Ensemble Cast for Borrowed Time 3 too. So a couple of awards. And there's a movie coming out directed by Robbie Moffat called Nessie, which is about the Loch Ness Monster. It should be out around Christmas time. And also Dying for Living, Volume 2, Show Business, all about the jobs and the films and everything else, coming out shortly. So, and I'll get back on your show when that comes out.
Awesome. And
Volume 1, Upbringing, is Amazon, and you can get an autographed copy, patrickkilpatrick.com, but it's on Barnes and Nobles and Amazon, Audible too. There's a rigorous little exercise. Do you ever do a Audible of your own book?
I have not.
It's pretty crazy because, you're paying $500 an hour for the studio. So you're cranking along, but you want it to have the most emotional power. So 5 days in a studio, maybe 10 hours a day.
Wow.
Doing that, but it's well thought of. And Dying for Living 1, Volume 1, won the Best of LA Award. So I'm happy about all of that. And so really excited about Nessie, though. We'll see how that turns out. Onward and upward, my friend.
Awesome. Congrats on everything again. And yes.
Sorry, Lionheart is out, which is a little lighthearted comedy directed by my buddy Ian Niles. And I play the father of the bride. And it's a silly movie, and it's really well done.
Fantastic.
All right, Tim. Stay out of trouble.
I definitely will.
All right. See you soon.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's up, all my fishes in the sea? Thanks again for tuning in and for being a subscriber. Your continued support means a lot. I want to let all my guppies in the sea know you can now purchase custom Fisch Bowl merch by DMing me, Sam Fish, on Instagram at the Fisch Bowl 88 or on Facebook at the Fisch Bowl. Get hooked on yours today. We have custom t-shirts, mugs, pens, handbags, hats, beanies, hoodies, everything to make you the coolest looking fish in the sea. And if that's not enough, I am now accepting early access subscribers on my Buzzsprout website. That's right, you can subscribe for early access to the Fisch Bowl's content, as well as I am accepting donations to help keep the show going. Again, your support means the most. It's the most important fishes in the sea to keep the unit going. Thanks again, y'all, and keep tuning in, and let's all keep swimming upstream.